Welcome to our YouTube channel. Today we're joined by our Centre Director, Professor Alex de Ruyter. So Alex, Downing Street has played down the prospect of reaching a trade deal with the EU in time for December, saying it will be very difficult and blaming Brussels' insistence on tackling tough issues up front. So obviously the clock is ticking now. Do you think trade talks could improve in time for December?
Well, never say never. I mean, there are a number of complications for the UK if it leaves the EU without any form of agreement whatsoever. Whilst those affecting cross-channel supply chains are well documented, the UK government is going to face enormous challenges in ensuring that the customs architecture it's legally obliged to put in place between Great Britain and Northern Ireland is fully operational. You know, we're talking less than 4 months now. This, of course, would be substantially mitigated in the event of an agreement. Indeed, of course, leaving the single market and customs union abruptly on the 1st of January would put enormous strain on customs architecture across the UK in general. Yeah, and whilst temporary arrangements on the UK side will mitigate some of that, can't eliminate it entirely. And then, of course, there's the question of various agencies and service sector agreements that will lapse, including those around the digital single market, for example. It's far from clear that all UK businesses are aware even of the challenges of moving data from the EU into the UK, even inadvertently. And of course, the fines for doing so can be steep. And that's without even touching, of course, on issues like aviation, chemicals, which are heavily regulated areas. What's going to happen to those, you know? So, yeah, talk certainly could improve. However, preparation for no agreement, I think, is needed by all involved. I certainly think that no agreement is a very realistic prospect and, frankly, looks the most probable outcome at the moment.
So the government is urging firms to sign up for a scheme to create work placements for young people who are at risk of becoming long-term unemployed. Just as many companies are obviously shrinking their workforce, the Federation of Small Businesses lobby group warned that more government action was needed to prevent a lost generation of young people. So do you think the scheme could be what young people possibly need at this time?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, the priorities of government, young people and businesses are unlikely to be aligned at this particular point in time. At the moment, of course, many businesses will simply be in survival. The minority can focus on the challenges of the next generation. And of course, this is going to be a systemic problem that no individual business can adequately tackle. Indeed, many are inundated by applications from overqualified individuals who've had many years of experience and a proven track record. Convincing these businesses to offer employment to young people then will be challenging. The upshot is that we're going to need much more aggressive action by government to prevent a repeat of the 2008-09 financial crisis, whose young people, of course, now in their 30s still bear the economic scars. So yes, much more is likely to be needed. However, schemes of this nature are certainly a good place to start, and I hope that the government will bring together multiple players, including further education, higher education institutes, to ensure that young people don't lose out. This must also include a focus on older workers who should be helped to retrain if necessary.
So Nicola Sturgeon has announced a draft bill will be drawn up setting out the timing, terms and question for a new Scottish independence referendum. The First Minister said that Brexit strengthened the case for Scotland to become an independent country. So when could another referendum happen then? And do you think we could start to be looking at the start of the breakup of the UK in the next few years then?
Yeah, I do. But I mean, of course, this is an unsurprising development. I mean, the debate within the SNP has been over timing and how aggressively to push for another referendum. And of course, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this bill. The real test, of course, they will be in the upcoming Holyrood elections, in which the SNP is expected to gain an overall majority. Now, with opinion polls increasingly showing a majority of Scots in favour of independence, with the caveat, of course, that a significant number of people still haven't decided, the end of the UK is a very real possibility. And whilst theoretically a referendum could take place in 2021, that'd be quite an aggressive timescale given the current situation. I think what's more likely is, you know, we'll see the Holyrood elections. If they get their majority, then they'll push to have a referendum somewhere between 2022 and 2024. Now, of course, assuming that Scotland, well, does vote to leave the rest of the UK, which seems likely at present, there would then be a series of issues to be discussed and negotiated. As such, the actual moment of independence would be somewhat further on. You know, you could be talking 5 to 10 years here if it were to happen. But one thing that, you know, is very clear is that the Scottish government can legislate to have a referendum for independence. It can conduct a referendum, but it would be non-binding unless it gets the assent of the Westminster government, who of course remain resolutely opposed to another Scottish referendum. So if Westminster refused to give their assent, then we'd be heading sort of political crisis territory. What would happen then? I don't know. But of course, it would be very difficult for a UK Prime Minister to ignore a popular mandate if, for argument's sake, 60% of Scots were to vote for independence. And that leaves further issues for Scotland. Of course, bearing in mind the backdrop here, of course, is Scottish independence is taking place against the backdrop of a prospective no-deal Brexit. And, something like 2/3 of Scots voted to stay in the EU. So in the eyes of those promoting Scottish independence, leaving a moribund UK state with an unpopular government at Westminster in the eyes of most Scots, and rejoining the EU clearly has an appeal now that it didn't in 2014. And it was quite notable that in the 2014 independence referendum, people in Scotland who voted most strongly to stay in the UK were the very same people who voted most strongly to stay in the European Union.
Thanks for joining us, Alex.
You're welcome, Beth.